Hey, Mike Zorns, the political otter, coming to you from Bloor Street East. There is a fantastic little cemetery just on the other side of the major intersection here that is incredibly quiet and where I wanted to film today. It just happens to turn out that Law and Order Toronto also thinks it's a beautiful filming location and happen to have it closed down for the day. So you're going to get a little more background noise than I had intended because I'm now headed back to my office the long way through Bloor Street East. Today, I'm going to try a little bit of a different video, and it's going to be the first in a series that I'm going to call What Carney Actually Said versus What ChatGPT is Telling You. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for the follows, the likes, all of the engagements and comments. It doesn't matter if you agree with my point of view or fundamentally disagree with everything that I'm saying. I genuinely appreciate how many of you are engaging and are finding this content stimulating and a great point of discussion. One thing that I've noticed in the chat is a lot of people telling me to read the book Values and who keep seeming to quote some of the things that Carney said in it. And I have read the book, and a lot of these quotes are not what was actually said in the book. So my sense is a lot of people are trying to get the book summarized through ChatGPT. I've noticed a few people directly quoting Jordan Peters, but calling it their own thoughts and his summary of the book. So I want to go back as somebody who has read the book, create a little clarification so that we can have some well-informed debate. That means comment on this one as much as you can below. I do genuinely want to hear from you. So I'm going to focus a little bit on chapter 5 today. And the reason that this chapter is important is because it is called The Future of Money. By the way, quick side note on the book, on book review here. Join me over on the other side. Hi. Book is really boring. I actually genuinely believe that unless you are somebody with a strong background in economic philosophy, are hugely passionate about the history of economy from, the foundations of humanity right through to the current day, and are really well versed in those theories, even if you are the book's a sleeper. There's some interesting points here and there, but for the most part, it is professorial to say the least. And if you're listening to the audiobook, which is how I digested it, Carney is even more monotone as a narrator than he is as prime minister. The only reason I didn't fall asleep is because I listened to it at the gym. So that's my quick book review. It's not a great book, but it is interesting for understanding where Carney stands on some of the issues. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. So, Chapter 5, The Future of Money. This is one of the chapters that I think is being misquoted and misrepresented through a lot of the ChatGPT summaries right now. We're definitely seeing a lot of people saying things like, oh, he's promoting a global currency and that we're all going to move to this hyper-controlled cabal, blah, 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 blah. That's not what the book says. And there's no reading of it in which you can interpret that. So here's a quick little bit of context for you. Chapter 4 goes through the history of currency and really talks everything from, the very first precious metals that were used for trade among different city-states or across the Roman Empire to be able to be a consistent way of measuring money, measuring the value of goods and services for exchange across what was an international system. The city-states of of the BC era, all the way through to to World War II, do offer us a great example of global currencies: gold, silver, The precious metals have been global currencies through almost the entirety of human history. Can exchange them pretty much anywhere on the planet. This has taken on a lot of different flavors. He goes through a deep explanation of the history of that. Like I said, it's boring as hell, but it really helps you understand what's meant by a global currency. We've always had them. This foundationally and fundamentally changed after World War II when we moved away from an asset-backed currency. Again, I'm oversimplifying. There's a whole bunch of history here. But what essentially happened is the US currency became the global currency. By the way, brief pause. Not talking about Carney for just a second here. My own viewpoint. I know a lot of people are like the BRICS are going to replace the U.S. as global currency. Blah 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 blah. Totally not going to happen. The U.S. is the only system in the world, no matter how badly it may get screwed up over the next 4 years, with the power and the consistency to be able to be the main measure of international trade. Okay, back to our primary program and talking about Carney. Hi. So, we've had for quite some time a system in which the US dollar is the global currency. Basically, every international deal that is done gets converted from the local currency into US currency into then the local currency of the buyer. So, we kind of still have one. What's really interesting when we get into chapter 5 and start going through what the future of this may look like, he puts forward a hypothesis of where blockchain technology and what is the emerging market in electronic currencies like Bitcoin could potentially do to how we exchange our goods and services. The hypothesis that's put forward is that if this were to ever work, should as a globe we decide to fully move into an electronic financial system, which we'll probably never do, there'll probably always be elements of other things there, but if we do, those systems to work are still going to have to be heavily regulated, like our current systems are, and are still going to have to be backed by hard assets. So, really, the hypothesis that's put forward in Chapter 5 in the book is not, central control by a central bank that's run by some cabal that everybody seems to keep posting when they try and summarize this through ChatGPT, but instead, taking the system as it is today, actually adding an extra level of transparency through it, through the new technology that blockchain has been able to present to us, but really continue on with the current system, just in a more electronic form, which would be subject to all the same rules, regulations, international trade practices that the current system has. It still allows for countries to have autonomy over their own currencies and their own systems. But again, in order for international trade, free trade, the exchange of goods and services between different countries to work, well, there always has to be some kind of consistent currency exchange in order to do that. It's been that way for like 5,000 years. The electronic systems of today just allow that to happen a little differently. That's the actual hypothesis he's putting forward in these chapters. So I definitely recommend, before the next time you get ChatGPT to summarize the book, try reading it yourself. It's boring, but you'll know what you're talking about. Hope you enjoyed that summary.